Right, let's take you here now. Hunger continues to be the main cause of poor nutrition in the country, with the aspect of safety still being overlooked. Now, this emerged during a media briefing in Pretoria themed Women in Science, aimed at commending the role of female scientists in using research innovations to improve the lives of ordinary people. Now, researchers say the effects of malnutrition and other diseases are mostly affecting people in rural areas where access to affordable healthcare services, therapeutics and nutritious food is severely limited. Now, to discuss this further, we are now joined by Dr. Nomusa Dlamini from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, otherwise known as the CSIR. She's a principal research and acting research group leader for food safety. Dr. Dlamini, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Dr. Dlamini, if you can please put on your sound or maybe just unmute your button. All right, Dr. Dlamini, perhaps as a first question, you know, as we look at the solutions of food security, the fact that hunger in South Africa is a reality for many people is shocking and frankly quite unacceptable for a country such as ours. So take us through what the issues really are, and fundamentally, can we solve hunger then in this country?
Hunger is actually a worldwide problem. Actually, according to the United States Agency for International Development, 800 million people go to bed hungry each day. That is 1 in 9. In South Africa, it's actually even more of a reality, because if you look at the figures, the world figures, Sub-Saharan Africa is affected by hunger more. In South Africa, the figure from Oxfam just a few years ago was saying that 1 in 4 people go to bed hungry. So hunger, it is a problem, and this is associated with poverty. And what causes poverty? There are many factors that cause poverty. And for us, hunger is related to food security. Food security also relates to nutrition or nutritional intake of nutritious food relates to health and well-being. So hunger is a food security issue. And when we define what food security is, basically food security, according to United Nations definition, is social access, economic access to food products, or rather to food that is nutritious, that is safe, that meets the person's preference. So it's everybody who can access that food. That's when we have food security. But food insecurity occurs when either access to food is limited by either high food prices, or is limited by lack of knowledge in terms of what nutritious food a person can have. So hunger can be in many ways. It's just access caused by poverty. We know that poverty is very rife, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa. South Africa is one area where poverty also exists. South Africa, according to world statistics, it is a food secure country, but we are in a unique position because we face a situation whereby, although we are food secure, we do face pockets of food insecurity, as you've mentioned, in the rural areas where we have a lot of poverty, unemployment, in some cases, failure of crops to yield, in some cases, even lack of knowledge. But poverty is the key to the food insecurity and to hunger. So if we can overcome poverty, then food becomes available to us. And also poverty may not be the only one that sort of limits our access to food, our access to food, nutritious food and safe food that improves health.
Look at the Oxfam stats and what you are now saying about this country being relatively food secure. Where do we then find the balance, you know, considering the fact that a study by the CSIR, you know, showed that 45% of the available food supply in South Africa is wasted?
Like as I mentioned, the average figures is that we are food insecure. Food wastage occurs along the food production value chain. Like if you look at production from the agricultural sectors until we get to the food that is on the table. Where does wastage take place? Post-harvest losses take place. If you walk into our markets today, you'll find that although fresh produce is transported into those markets, we get some food that is not, or rather some vegetables or crops that are not sold, but that will rot and waste away. In some cases, you find that especially, like as I said, we are a food secure country. People buy food, keep it in their houses until the expiry date. That food has to be thrown away. That's also food wastage. So food wastage can occur along the value chain from the time we harvest our food product until it gets on the table. Post-harvest losses is one. Agro-processing could be an answer to that. And having SMMEs, the CSR we work with SMMEs, that is small enterprises that are engaged in agro-processing. Agro-processing basically is to make sure that our food products are processed into more stable products, either by drying or by packaging them and storing them at temperatures that would preserve them more. But when you look at some of what the food production states that take place, the harvested crops are left out in the sun where the temperatures are high and spoilage will take place faster. It's true. 45%, it's even a low figure. I mean, South Africa even presents a low figure for post-harvest losses or for food losses. And as I've mentioned, again, we could reduce them by having more agro-processing entrepreneurs taking charge of that aspect, and also educating our consumers in terms of how then to store our foods. Once we buy our food from the supermarket, how to store it, the sell-by date, and some education is needed also. Sell-by date might not necessarily mean that your food has gone bad, but may mean that your food product could potentially cause a problem or could potentially change taste or even the flavor. So education is key, so that when our consumers buy their food products, buy vegetables, they buy what they need. They don't buy in excess. And if there happens to be excess that is present that cannot be processed, somebody else can take over and make stabler products. Dried products is one of them.
Now,
and it is cheaper to store and to transport dried products.
Of course, in this conference that was held recently to celebrate women in science, that was also mentioned in terms of just research innovation, improving the lives of ordinary people. Talk to us a little bit more and expand a little bit more about what you are talking about in terms of SMMEs getting involved. For instance, you mentioned agro food processing entrepreneurs. What would that entail in terms of finding solutions for this?
Okay. At CSR, the research we do is to develop nutritious food products that are safe. And this work, we can do it independently, where we develop products and then approach entrepreneurs, SMEs or industries to commercialize them. But in some instances, what happens is that we get entrepreneurs who approach us with ideas or who approach us wanting us to help them with certain processes. So by working with entrepreneurs and by small industries, we help them develop safe products, nutritious products, which are scientifically validated. We also use locally grown crops, resources, ingredients. So in a way, we are improving the whole value chain in terms of food production, because the food crops will be used in products that will then enter the market. We've worked with several SMMEs that have actually put products on the market using indigenous crops. One of them is we've canned butternut for an SMME in Bali Agri, and that product is actually ready for the market now. We've also used okra. Okra is a vegetable that is little known but very nutritious. This SMME, Vesa, also has a product, it's a drink. We've worked with indigenous leafy vegetables as well, which are quite nutritious. You know that some of the hunger that we experience is not the hunger because of lack of food, but it's hunger because of lack of nutritious food, lack of certain vitamins and minerals. Vitamin A is one of those that has been cited as deficient, especially in our children. 45% are affected, mostly in rural areas. Leafy vegetables, indigenous leafy vegetables, because the moroho, imifino, people are familiar with the rural areas or even in the towns, or even ordinary spinach qualifies as such. So when we took those leafy vegetables, the indigenous ones, and compared them to spinach, we found that some of them are actually even more nutritious in terms of vitamin A, even in terms of iron. And we have worked with SMMEs who have actually developed products, even using nutritious sweet potato, which is high in provitamin A. Provitamin A is a precursor of vitamin A, which we know is deficient in our children, especially, and in our diets. Formulated a product. That product, we've called it a nutritious drink. It's been tried with school children. Communities were entirely involved. What the CSR did was to have the scientific, basically using scientific knowledge, formulate this product, prove that there are sufficient nutrients that are present, and these nutrients can be available to the children. Analyzed it and made sure that the process was safe. We trained communities. So the other part that we do in terms of ensuring that there is food security, that SMMEs actually take part in terms of production of nutritious food, is what we call technology transfer. We train communities, we bring them to CSR, we expose them to technologies, we teach them about those technologies, we even assist them to set up. In some cases, we even work with them where they are, like we work with the community in Limpopo. They are trying to set up a processing facility. We've gone there. We have helped them procure equipment. Of course, there are challenges here and there, but training is key. In some instances, you have to even bring in equipment manufacturers to help with the training, and even putting up facilities that are accredited, because then in terms of having an end product, it has to be commercially or accepted by the market, and there are certain regulations that need to be followed. So so in terms of us, we look at the whole value chain.
All right, Dr. Nomusa Dlamini, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and unpacking that for us. Dr. Nomusa Dlamini is from the CSIR. She's a principal researcher.